Hello, Lucaslabrador. What a pleasure it is to meet a British evangelist. I hope you don't mind me describing you like that. I could have described you other ways, but evangelist is about as accurate as any. I have heard your name used several times on YouTube, quite unfairly. People have described you as a total lunatic, but having watched your videos, brother, I can tell you that I have no idea what they're talking about at all. I did want to reply to your video, Something Must Be Done. It's struck a very strong chord with me, I have to say. Just a few little notes that I've got down here. You're right on so many levels. We can't convert people to the gospel of Jesus Christ, hallowed be his fluffiness, by force. We have to, you know, do it the newfangled PC way. I mean, we could do it by force. I mean, we've done it in the past, haven't we? You say nobody is making waves, nobody's rocking the boat. Well, actually, I think the atheists are. I think they're making waves, and I think they're rocking the boat. I think you were talking about Christians when you said nobody. Yes, you're right. We need to get the power back. We need the respect, the way we used to have it in the old days. Nobody laughed at the Witchfinder General when he rode into town. He used to come in and all the atheists used to disappear in a puff of smoke. Quite literally. We can't make people into Christians. It's impossible, you say. Well, we can if we get them young enough, before their brains are fully formed. I think if we preach the gospel of his holy scrumptiousness, our Father in heaven, or somewhere else which isn't on a map, I think we could get them. I do. I really do. Eggheads, intellectuals, you're absolutely right. Who needs them? I mean, what do they know? I mean, apart from knowledge, and apart from speaking ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek, and having traced back the parchments of the original holy, scrumptious scripture, such as this guy.
In Luke's Gospel, chapter 2, we have the only story of Jesus as a boy in the New Testament. Jesus is a 12-year-old, and we're told that he and his family have taken a trip to Jerusalem to celebrate a festival, probably the Passover festival. It is a peculiar story because they celebrate this festival, and then the family goes back in the caravan back home, and 3 days later they realize Jesus isn't with them. I mean, you might think they would have checked.
Mary lost the Son of God?
But he's not there, and so they go back to Jerusalem to try and find him. And on the third day, his mother finds him in the temple. She sees Jesus finally after tracking him down for 3 days, and she says, "Son, why have you done this? Your father and I have been looking all over for you." Now, when scribes copied this, they were taken aback. Your father and I? But Joseph wasn't his father, right? Jesus was born of a virgin. So it doesn't make sense for Mary to say, "Your father and I have been looking all over for you." And so there are changes in the manuscripts. Some manuscripts simply say, "Joseph and I have been looking all over for you." Some manuscripts say, "We have been looking all over for you." But somebody's changing the text because it could be read as a problem. And so they got rid of the problem.
You know, this is really odd, because right at the end of the Bible here, our holy book of cringing kneeliness, it says here, there's a warning to everyone who hears the words of this prophecy in the book. And if they add anything, it says God's really going to be pissed off with them. Now, why would the scribes, being Christians, change anything if they actually believed that was true? I think that was the wrong clip. I'd like to apologise for that. I was going to give you a clip of Dr. Bart Ehrman, who's a PhD and Masters in Divinity from Princeton Theological Seminary, who was an evangelical in his teens. So I'll play you a clip of him.
In this passage, Jesus says no one knows the day or the hour, not the angels of heaven, nor even the Son, but the Father alone. Okay, Matthew 24:36. Scribes copying that found it to be a peculiar thing to say, though. Not even the Son knows when the end is going to come? I mean, surely the Son of God is all-knowing. Isn't he omniscient? And so how do scribes deal with the problem? They deal with the problem by getting rid of the phrase. And so in later manuscripts, the phrase, not even the Son, is taken out, so that now Jesus doesn't claim to be ignorant about when the end is going to come. So that strikes me as probably an intentional sort of change.
Well, I really must apologise. Apparently that was Dr. Bart Ehrman, and he was an evangelical as a teenager, but after he learned ancient Greek and Hebrew, he calls himself an agnostic now. I mean, I'll edit those clips out. We won't have to hear any more of him. Apart from speaking ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew and tracing back the parchments of the very first Christian scriptures, apart from all of that, what does he know?
Probably the most familiar story in the New Testament Gospels is the story of Jesus and the woman taken in adultery. The way the story works, it's found only in the Gospel of John, chapters 7 and 8. And Jesus is teaching the temple, and the Jewish leaders they drag this woman in front of him, and they say, she's been caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says we're to stone someone like this. What do you say? He stoops down and he starts writing on the ground. And he looks up and he says, let the one without sin among you be the first to cast a stone at her. This story, this beautiful story, this powerful story, which has two terrific lines from Jesus in it, this story was not originally in the Gospel of John. This is a story that was added to the Gospel of John by later scribes. How do I know that? We have a number of early manuscripts of the Gospel of John. This story is not found in any of our early or best manuscripts of the Gospel of John. The Greek authors who wrote commentaries on the Gospel of John over the centuries don't mention this story until the 10th century, 1,000 years after the days of Jesus.
I must apologise, Mr. Labrador. We certainly wouldn't want anyone seeing the superb 10-part lecture given by Dr. Ehrman, the link for which I provided in the sidebar over there. We certainly wouldn't want that.
In Mark's Gospel, Jesus is put on trial, and he's crucified, he's dead, he's buried, and on the third day, the women go to the tomb. The tomb is empty, and Jesus is not in it. There's some man in there, and the man tells the women that Jesus is not here, he's been raised from the dead. He tells the women, go tell the disciples that he will meet them in Galilee. And then it says the women fled from the tomb, and they didn't say anything to anyone, for they were afraid. Period. That's where it ends. That's the end of the Gospel of Mark. And you think, how could it end there? I mean, they're told to tell the disciples, but they don't tell anybody. Didn't the disciples ever learn? Didn't they go to Galilee? Didn't they see Jesus? How could that be the end of the story? And that's exactly the reaction the scribes had. They got to that ending, they said, how could it end there? And scribes then decided it couldn't add there, and so they added 12 verses. So that in your English Bibles today, you'll find 12 more verses after that, after chapter 16, verse 8, and often they'll be in double brackets, because the translators will tell you in a footnote, these verses weren't originally in here, these were added by later scribes.
One particular line you said, which is the reason I'm really making this video, is you said, God has no grandsons. You're either a first-hand son of God, or you get burnt alive. Well, when I heard that, I thought you were a first-hand son of the...
Well, who is it that goes to the tomb? Is it Mary Magdalene by herself or Mary with other women? If other women, how many other women? And what are their names? It depends which gospel you read. What do they find there? Is the stone rolled away already or is it not rolled away already? Depends which gospel you read. Who do they see there? Do they see a man there as in Mark? Do they see two men there as in Luke? Or do they see an angel as in Matthew? Depends which gospel you read. What are they told? Are they told to tell the disciples to meet Jesus in Galilee, or are they told to tell the disciples to stay in Jerusalem? Do they go tell the disciples? It depends whether you read Mark or whether you read Matthew and Luke. If they do tell the disciples, what do the disciples do? Do they go to Galilee, or do they stay in Jerusalem? It depends which gospel you read. I mean, you just go down the line, and it's different.